to the May meeting of the Environmental Board. First we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Bischoff.
Here.
Commissioner Davey.
Here.
Commissioner Rothbert. Commissioner Keel.
Present.
Commissioner Pollock.
Here.
Commissioner Bright.
Here.
First item of business is the approval of the minutes from April. Any corrections, comments, concerns, casual observations?
We have another moment, Mr.
Another moment.
I'm sorry to interrupt it.
And I thought about just sending it to you to prove it.
I wouldn't have had a chance to.
But no, I figured it's that time of year.
This is wonderful.
Very detailed.
Well, more is not necessarily better, but I wasn't sure how to shrink it, so
Yeah.
I just left.
No, I think you did a good job.
It's, I take minutes for a committee, and I find it's nice to have all the details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is way more succinct than I usually do, but it's helpful.
Well, at one end of the extreme, you have bullet points. At the other, you have a comprehensive narrative. And I was trying to, split the difference.
You did well.
Thanks for putting the time in.
Sure, no worries.
Mm-hmm.
Any corrections? Are we good?
I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Okay.
Second?
Second.
Second was Gina. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, minutes approved. And we have a petitioner this evening, Pastor Walton Levitt. The floor is yours.
Welcome.
Okay, my subject is no mow May, and, Marty, sorry, your name went right out of my head. Your neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
Oh good, we're both brain dead tonight. Anyway, we discovered that, both of us had done no mow May last year. She got dinged, I didn't. I'm a new, hi Michael. So, I'm a new homeowner, and I just bought property in 2021, and moved in last November. So I'm still kind of learning what this is all about in terms of being a homeowner and taxpayer and all that good stuff. So, one of the things that I'm concerned about is pollinators and being able to, as many of you know, the bee population has diminished in a variety of ways and for a variety of reasons, and there are lots of other pollinators as well that populate or hopefully will increase their population if we do something about it. And No Mow May is a program that started in the UK, United Kingdom, and then it spread to the US, and it is now gaining popularity over the last maybe 5 to 10 years. The closest area that I know of that is embracing it is Syracuse and in the Skaneateles area. I don't know all the details. The idea is to not mow during May and let the pollinators get a jump on things before all the other flowering things are available to them. There are different thoughts on it. Some say just low mow or not mow as often, and it improves the environment. You're the environmental board, right? So it may be of interest to you. And there are many different kinds of yards, many different kinds of lawns, different thoughts on this. There are people that want their lawn to look like a golf green. I'm not one of those people. And so, but I think that the rules should be flexible enough so that people can improve the environment. And I did not bring all of the documentation because I wasn't sure how much Marty had passed on to Gina or what this meeting would be like. So I could put that together if you like, for either yourselves or for the common council. I think without you all supporting some kind of version of it, I don't know how that works. Is it better if you all support something before it goes to the common council? I'm thinking that's probably the case the way it works. And so I'm suggesting that we at least, if we could, ask code enforcement people not to ding people, not to fine them during the month of May.
When you say dinged, I mean,
When I mean ding, I mean fine them.
Ticket,
and that's happened?
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
If you're above 10 inches,
I think it is 10
I think
inches.
it's 10 inches in the code.
Oh, yeah. And so as far as I know, as I understand the rules, which I'm still learning because I'm a new homeowner and trying to learn all this stuff, my understanding is if it goes above 10 inches and the code enforcement goes by and decides to ticket you for that or fine you, then you have a certain amount of time to mow the lawn to the under 10 inches, and if you don't do it, the city will come, or they'll hire somebody or something happens, and then they will charge you for whatever the rate was that that person or the city decides a rate is. I have no idea. I'm hoping not to go that route to get a ticket and fined and whatnot. So my concern is supporting the pollinators and trying to improve the environment. I'd be happy to provide some of the scientific stuff I've discovered online. Most of it's through Bee City USA. I mean, they're the ones that are really embraced this and are spreading it across the country. There's also a Yerkes nonprofit, XER something. Anyway, and they also are embracing this. So that's as much as I have now. My hope is that whatever is adopted, it will be flexible enough so that people, whether it's low mow-may or no mow-may or some version between, will not be fined by the city code. For the month of May anyway, or maybe into a couple days into June so they have time to mow it before they get ticketed. Because it is Memorial Day usually, around the end of May. I'm sorry.
Do you know if there's any research on if that increases? I know because I've had people ask me about this.
The tick population,
Ticks,
yeah. And the research that I read in the article that Marty sent us last night, or the night before, is that actually ticks are not as active during this time because they're still kind of waking up, and they're more active in dead leaves piled up in dead, piles of dead leaves and branches and whatnot.
Old wood and such.
Yeah, old wood, and the larva's just coming, waking up. So my understanding is that the tick, it does not increase the ticks. I don't think there's anything that's gonna slow the ticks, personally, that I know of, that would be a natural solution, but there may be, I'm still learning.
I thought I read somewhere that it wasn't just about a whole month, but until certain other things began to bloom. Is that correct? So that it doesn't have to be the whole month of May, but
Yeah.
because a lot of other stuff is in bloom right now.
That's true, and a lot depends upon where you are in the country, a lot depends upon the weather that month. I don't know how many of you've been around when it's snowed on Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it depends on the month, on where you are geographically and the weather that month, that year. From what I've read so far, there's no, it's not like Camelot and everything happens on time like it's supposed to or something.
If I might, with just a quick search, Cortland, who is similar to us in many ways, has no mow-may. And a conservation initiative to promote healthy habitat for people and pollinators. Residents let their lawns grow just during the month of May, let wildflowers blossom. Register, so that you register so that, with code enforcement, so that you're not, you get a certificate of participation and you're not cited.
Oh, great.
and no cost.
And there's
And mow
some,
your lawn by June 5. So
Oh,
this, they've got a
okay.
nice little website we could, if
oh, I
you're
like
interested.
that. Yeah, that sounds really good. Okay, I didn't know about Cortland. Thank you, Gina.
And I think that, you know, it's reasonable, but we have a wonderful code enforcement officer we have a good relationship with, and asking him his opinion. He helped us do the bee, code, so
Oh,
he's
good.
about the pollinators too.
Oh, good, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Senior.
I met most in the office, one way or the other, as I have gone to say, what am I supposed to be doing as a homeowner? Anyway. So, yeah, I wanna be within the rules, but I'd also like to have this considered as an option. So I really like the idea of registering, that was also in a number of them. One of them was in Michigan that I read about, and, I think it was Michigan. Hi.
Hello.
Good to see you again. I was here for the Save the Fox Square Fitness. Anyway, so, I think that something along those lines of Cortland makes a lot of sense, but this Michigan group, they had like 400 and something that registered to participate in No Mow May. And then the next year it was more, and so I think you're right, I think registering is a good idea. Some of the municipalities that I've noticed or read about, they require a sign on your yard. They can be homemade as long as it's a sign that indicates that you are. I mean, I bought mine from Oka because I'm crazy busy and I don't have time to make a sign, and I'm not a very good sign maker anyway. And so, and also I thought it was a fundraiser for them, so I thought, you know, support.
Do you happen to know if Cooperstown is,
I
doing
do,
it and not?
I do not know, I mean, my impression of Cooperstown is, are you
Because that's the
kidding?
home of OCCA, that's part of why I wondered if they had.
Yes, well, my impression is that they might not go that route, but I don't know, I could be surprised. I can find out.
So how does this, move forward from here? What's the action of the board regarding this?
I think maybe a more developed proposal, and let's see what Stephen Yearly also thinks, once we've got something to show them.
Enforcement
Yeah,
person?
and then maybe we talk about it again.
So this May's already sailed, right? It's mid-May already.
Well,
I
it
did,
is.
I did promote on our webpage, on our,
Yeah.
to consider delay mowing and raking for, so, in response to Marty to some degree, but with not endorsing no mow May or any law breaking. Just saying you might consider delaying for these reasons, and I put some nice pictures of our wildflowers, you know, our violets and the other things that we're trying to.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was against the law. My whole block has been doing No Mow May at my instigation.
Safety in numbers.
I believe Marty got a ticket last year.
She did at the very end of May,
Yeah.
yeah. But,
So they do take,
Yeah.
I don't know what the enforcement's like and where, but
A
there's.
friend of mine got a ticket also.
Oh, okay.
pardon me?
Another friend of mine, got a ticket for not mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of funny.
Until it's you.
So it seems like the first thing would be to check in with Steve Yearly.
No, I think the first thing is we get
Put something in writing.
a little something to hand them,
Yeah,
yeah. We as in.
As in me or Marty.
Yes.
I'm still working, I think there's a little more time on her hands.
Well, I think if Cortland has one, it's easy enough to just basically take that.
Yeah,
I can, because I work in Cortland, I can talk to people there and find out. I have not seen any evidence that there's anybody not mowing their lawn.
We just looked it up, they have a website, there's no mow May endorsed and you register, so
Right,
it's.
I'm saying I haven't seen a single sign, or I haven't seen anyone whose lawn is long. But I'll look more carefully now.
you need to find people like Catherine and go on her block.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
because it's great to have it, to have changed the ordinance, but then we really need to promote it in order to.
Mhm, mhm.
Well, and I think OPA would help promote it, and there are other people that would help promote it if it was passed. Thank you, Michael, that's a good idea, though, to check out and see what they're doing. So if I, to the point of who, I'm not sure who said, so if I go online and get the Cortland one and change everything to Oneonta, and then we'd at least have a basis point to start the conversation, is that right?
Or just a,
I don't think you need to
Hey,
reinvent the wheel, you know.
Well, that's my thing. I mean,
Somebody's
why-
already-
Why reinvent the wheel
Right,
if
just-
a neighboring, relatively neighboring
Right.
Portland community already has something? I agree with you. That makes sense.
Just for what it's worth, I like the idea a lot, but I would rather not have to go on my computer and register my house. It's just, I just want to not mow my lawn.
Right,
and
right.
stick a sign in it.
Maybe stick a sign in it, maybe not, but just the month of May is just free and clear. No one gets busted during the month of May. No registration, no sign.
Okay.
So if the city agrees to make that
I
an
don't want to have to go on my computer and do Windows 10.
Right.
Although,
Just-
and then,
With all the time you're saving from not mowing, with all the time you're saving from not mowing, go online.
It's just a long time.
Although, Paul, is there some value in city having, you can be able to say there are this many people
Yeah, there
for
is.
publicity value?
There's value in the data and there's value in the educational component of going online and reading about it and making the effort to register your house as a no mow May house. There's something that, because you're making a statement. You're taking a position. I agree. I get that.
But you might have more participation if you didn't have to go through the step
Get
of
more
registration.
participation if you just put it in the Daily Star and say, hey, you don't need citywide, month of May, you don't need, you're encouraged to not mow your lawn.
That's a good point.
No
Okay.
tickets issued month of May.
All right.
Doesn't matter forever, for all I care. I think we should have rules allowance.
So the choices would be registering or not registering? Or just making
I
May
don't want to belabor the point here.
a
I
free
think
lawn, a free lawn,
should just be a free
whatever
month.
month. Got it. Okay.
But that's just,
Yeah.
In our soil, eventually, the natives will outcompete, and the grass will be gone if we start off fertilizing and true greening, and then you just get wildfire.
Or invasive.
But it doesn't look like the homogeneous thing, so. You wouldn't have to have a foot of grass once you get it to the native state.
I honestly was walking out my front door today and I was admiring the wildflowers in
Yeah.
my front lawn right now.
Yeah,
So many
yeah, me
places.
too.
I love to forget me nots.
Forget my
Yeah.
And the only problem with not mowing for a whole month is it can get so tall it wrecks your lawn more. So
Well, then.
you may have to do it once.
Well, then there's no mow June.
livestock.
Livestock, we're gonna have goats.
Well, it's also just basically harder to mow if it's taller. It's just harder.
So Chair
Sorry.
Ainsworth,
Yes.
is the process then at this point to have me or someone type up something, a proposal, either using Cortland as a guide or Skinny Atlas or whoever we can find, and then, and maybe have a couple of options. Option one, have everybody register. Option two, just give it a free month, you know, whatever. And then who does that get sent to and how, and do we do anything for next Tuesday at the Common Council?
That might be a bit hasty, because if we want to go to code enforcement first and get his buy-in.
Sure.
But I would say, yeah, send it to me.
And how do I do that?
Okay, my email is D Ainsworth.
Okay, just no dots
Yeah, one
or
word,
lines or
D
anything?
Ainsworth
Okay,
at fastmail.com.
fast mail.
And
Okay,
I
that's a
can
new one to me, good.
share it with the board, and I can send it on to Mr. Yearly, and we'll go from there.
All right, now should I have the Common Council on my agenda next Tuesday, should I show up? Or not to say, yeah, I think this is a good idea, or not necessarily?
So
What's your opinion?
What do you think?
Seems kind of hasty.
You're certainly always welcome to council meetings or public meetings, but I think given that, I think some work on this on the backside will take place, it might be a better use of your time that when this reaches either a committee or the full council, it needs needs to go to a full council, and that's a whole different discussion as well. It might be able to be through committee, we'll have to figure that out. That maybe at that particular time, to have, to be there and be able to speak in favor of that would be helpful. But I would say right now it might be a bit premature.
So who would tell me that, how that's progressing?
Well,
Is that Mr. Ainsworth?
yeah, I think we would put it up for a motion to approve this proposal
To endorse it.
in the next, at the next meeting, and then from there it can go forward to common council for action.
Okay, I guess I need to know whether or not I'm gonna get a ticket, cause I opened my mouth. And do I need to, actually, I'm not personally mowing right now, but I'm hiring somebody, so when do I ask him to,
Well, the current code is
So-
10 inches.
That I can't
Yeah.
answer.
yeah,
I mean,
okay, I
as
could,
far as your own property, I would reach out to, you could certainly reach out to Steve Yearly, the code enforcement officer, as a,
I should draw attention to this.
well, exactly, I mean, I ended up having to do a building permit, the plumber and electrician said, why did you go there? Anyway, yeah, just trying to follow the rules,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, drawing attention to yourself is not always a good idea, but,
I'll take that advice.
Fight the good fight.
It's a little late.
okay, so, maybe I could just say I live on Catherine's block.
Well, I will say that my husband mowed yesterday because we have a new lawnmower and he was afraid it was gonna get
Oh, I
ruined
see,
because it had gotten so tall.
oh,
But it'll grow back.
well, exactly.
It'll grow back and we have another few weeks in May, so.
Okay, so, I do have one of these on my lawn, and, if it's helpful, I won't bother putting this one out, so it can be clean. But is it helpful to show a little, it's unobtrusive, it kind of gives the community.
Yeah, I think it's
point.
certainly helpful. I mean, in terms of visual prop,
Okay,
to be able to talk about this with the council, I think would be fine.
All right.
And trying to think about who is the most appropriate committee to go before. I'm kind of wrestling with that one. I'm not sure whether that would be I guess I would have to see what the nature of what you develop is. It's either gonna be legislative or quality of life. And
Yeah,
it's
there's
like-
gonna be a requirement to make some sort of code change, just so that they're not penalized for not enforcing the code.
I think there's discretion on enforcement. I don't think we have to
There's
change
some
the
discretion,
code.
but if somebody calls and complains and says Catherine hasn't mowed her lawn, then they are supposed to go out and assess that. And if they don't, there's a failure on their behalf.
But we should see if Cortland changed their code, has it in the code.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful to know. 'Cause
They
that's
actually
what I
have a
was just-
6-inch requirement.
Right.
You have to
That's 6
register,
inches.
you have to register by April 21st to participate in No Mow May, and then you have to have mowed your lawn by June 5th.
Yeah, that's what we just.
Okay.
you're good. Look
But
it up.
whether or not that's in the code or it's just their policy.
Yeah, did a quick search of their code, I find it on their code enforcement page, but I don't find it written into their E-code yet.
Okay.
There's no
Thank you.
correlation
Good for you.
in both, however.
Right?
Right. Thank you very much.
All right, may I have a personal
Sure.
point of privilege? Mark, I've been meaning to email you since we were here last about the Fox Square Fitness. Thank you very much. And I don't know why the mayor took it off the agenda, but I'm glad that we stuck with it because
Point of order,
your-
this is.
your committee did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sorry. Thank you. All right.
Correspondence, I don't know, nothing came my way. All right. Commissioner Davies.
I need to apologize for my tardiness. I was at a school event that ran much longer than I thought, so my apologies. Hence the tie. You can take it off. Yeah, take it off. It's been a while. There's really, I feel like this is a lot of what I do when I come back here to this group, is to talk about that there's no really anything going on right now explicitly. In years past, of course, having sat on this board, there's been a lot of things that are going on. I think our focus has really been, as a council, there's been a lot of kind of concerns around, infrastructure and our finances has been the bulk of things. So I think the two things that I can report to you is one, in relation that it is an outgrowth of this board. Kathy and Sandy, you both been involved in that. It's been the deer management, and I'll talk about that for a moment. And then I think it'd be helpful to talk about the parking garage. although it not kind of seen as directly environmentally related, I think there's environmental kind of impact to that, so I can kind of bring that with you, if I could. So the Deer Management Task Force has been kind of steadily at work for quite a long time. I was trying to think recently how long it was. It's been
Started in August,
I was going to say about a
been
year.
meeting almost weekly since then, yeah.
Right, and so they have brought forward extensive set of kind of ideas, and ultimately that will be made into recommendations for the council about a program to address the deer. I think we're kind of in the kind of finishing touches of this right now, as I understand it. Oh, I think we are. I mean, I think we are at the point where we're ready to take the committee that's viewing this quality of life committee is ready to take these recommendations, get them very kind of outlined, and then bring them to council for review. Not certain whether.
Have you received something recent, like since yesterday, from us?
I've been pretty busy today and haven't had a chance to check my email to see whether there's been anything.
We keep on condensing and simplifying, and there's, I think, a one-page thing that's coming, is, you know.
I think so, yeah.
That it very specifically says, here, do this, do this, do this, and here's how.
Right.
And the links to do it, and it should help you all a great deal.
Yep.
Because it's very specific, very simple,
Succinct.
succinct, that's the word.
Excuse me, that's what we'll be doing. The committee, the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee, will be then taking that, kind of organizing if needed. Again, I haven't seen what the final product is here, and then bringing those forward to council. So there's an August date if we were to, the city needs to apply for culling permits. There's an August date in which we have to file an application with DEC. If we're gonna be doing that, and if not, it would need to wait till next August, because there's only August. And these are special permits. This is not just like a deer hunting license that an average hunter can get. This is so a municipality can address their deer population in the manner that would be described in this application, which is what the Deer Management Task Force has been doing, is kind of describing a process through which the city needs to address the deer population. That would then there's kind of a step process, but then the ultimate step would be if the city would choose to put in for a culling permit, that would then allow for culling in particular places. So there's a lot in between here and there from the standpoint of the DEC permit, and then whether DEC approves it. But that's certainly being looked at. Again, that was something that came out of this board. The other piece is the parking garage.
Hey, before you move on,
Yes.
I just request, will you send that document to the environmental board?
And the public comment
So
process.
Is it ready for public, I mean, is it ready to send on?
I would assume, I think Betsy puts all of our stuff on all for
That's
Oneonta.
right. Yeah, it should be
Anything we
there.
do, she puts on there.
Okay.
But we just did it last night,
Okay.
and I think she sent it on. Carrie Ann, did you get anything from Betsy today?
No.
Okay, so it should be
So she's still working on it.
coming, so.
Okay.
And when you get it, do you put it on all for Oneonta, or?
I don't do that website, no.
Okay, so I think she does. So, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's there's, it's not to say that we are culling tomorrow, or the decision is made to cull tomorrow, but I think it sounds like the task force is kind of wrapping up their work and then putting forward things that will then be examined by council. Any other questions with regard?
In this new thing that we've sent, there are 2 other hunting permits that do not require
Right.
DEC approval and do not even require city approval, but we can publicize it, and it can start to allow extra hunting that may start to have an impact, even without the more specific and involved actual culling.
Right, and then
So
the other
it's
one
part of
was hunting on city property. Was that still a recommendation as well?
There's a piece in there about that, yeah.
Right now, it's illegal to hunt on city property. Watershed property, obviously not in Wilbur Park.
As long as all of the other requirements are met, like the 250 yard distance between, from a building and whatever other requirements they have, yes.
Right.
It's just really clear that nothing else is going to make a difference to this. It's really clear, you know, all the other mitigation efforts that we've talked about, everybody does them already, and it doesn't stop the influx of deer, it doesn't stop the overpopulation of the deer.
Right.
So, you know, I know it's a tough thing to go forward with, but
Do you know how many deer live within the city limits?
there's no way to know. And even the DEC says you can't figure that out, and it doesn't matter. If what you look at is the impact of the deer on the environment and people and, you know,
So when we start,
ticks and
Yeah.
yeah.
when we start seeing things growing in the Wilbur Park woods again, we'll know that there's been an impact.
Mhm.
I mean, that's one simple way of looking at it, because right now, you walk through and you don't really see much growing. Saplings, maybe 18 inches tall, or seedlings, and the deer are, and you can see that the deer are browsing. You can
Yeah.
look for signs of deer browse, and you can see, and this one's never getting any taller, it keeps getting thicker and bushier, but it's not getting any taller than this because of deer browse. I can show you an ash tree.
Is there any provision or process for donating the meat if the city?
Yes,
takes that?
yes, there is.
That's part of it.
Mhm.
The
We've-
hunters would be able to keep anything they wanted, but everything else gets donated.
So as I understand it, again, I think Kathy just mentioned, but it's the report, maybe not this latest version that took place last night, is on all Fort Omiana dot.
Everything we've done so far, I think.
Right, so
And
if,
but the city, aren't the city, I mean, I think the minutes of our meetings go to the city
yeah,
website.
they should be posted there. I haven't checked to see whether the minutes are up to date, but they should be there if people wanna look at that. But at some point, once the plan is finalized, that will have to certainly be publicly vetted, and I mean, there's some steps left that have to be taken, before moving forward or anything, so that will certainly be discussed in committee. We'll go from there. Any other questions about that?
The public will really need to know about this, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it might cause an outcry, some people might.
You
go,
think?
"Whoa."
There have been already 13 articles between the Daily Star and the Freeman's Journal. So we've really been pushing to get information out there already.
Yeah. And that's again, what I'm doing is kind of catching you up to date on something that kind of came from this board. There is still discussion to be had at a committee level, a lot of discussion to be had at a committee level, and then there's still going to be discussion at a council level on whatever the recommendations might be. So there's steps left. Again, I just want to make it really clear that there's nothing decided that we're moving forward on things, because we have to go through the process of vetting all these ideas and having a lot of things in place. We've already had legal, our city attorney weighing in on it. I think whatever the final recommendations are, we're gonna have to have the city attorney weigh on it as well. We've also had our insurer weighing in on that, and again, the final documents will have to be looked at by them. So there's a lot of different kind of pieces of this that need to be checked off. And I think one of those is going to need to be some kind of public forum, or maybe several. I'm not sure again what the will of the council or the will of the committee will be, but clearly I think this is a kind of topic that we'll need to have some conversations about that as well.
Yeah, the public piece is a big one.
Yeah.
And it's not just notice, it's comment. You gotta let the public speak.
Right.
Right.
I will say, though, that we've had many people come saying that they really want something to be done about the deer, and we have been very surprised at how few negative things we've had coming at us. Now, maybe that's very selective, it could very well be, but you know, it's just, when you agree with that it's,
Absolutely.
we've had
And-
very few people coming at us with anything negative.
And I've had
It's so
people-
strange for me to I walk to work every day, a couple times a day, and I see half a dozen deer all the time. And if they've been there for 20-something years, it's gonna be weird for me to walk to work in the morning and not see the deer.
It won't last too long.
No,
They'll be back.
it's a
It'll be a
multi-year,
routine.
Multi-year thing, yeah.
intervention.
So one process question, this issue originally came from this committee and we kicked it out to council and then this special committee was formed. So the special
Task
committee then
force.
reports back to council or back to the quality of life.
Back to the Quality of Life Infrastructure Committee.
So
There's
the
been,
environmental board doesn't have any specific role in the process anymore, is that correct?
Right.
no, so the, you know, when it came out of this, the recommendation was, to go to the Quality of Life. In the Quality of Life Committee meeting, and I forget the exact date, I believe it was sometime last year, there was quite a bit of discussion about what should be done. It was agreed that we didn't have the expertise or the knowledge to do much about it, and so the mayor, we recommended to the mayor that he put together a task force to study this a little bit more in depth. That task force was created, again, I guess in August, or prior to that, first meeting was in August, then they put together, this kind of analysis of things, so that's what the committee will be acting on, is to take those recommendations and try to figure out how to, what do we do moving forward, as you know, what's the process that we need to do moving forward, as well as again, you know, there's still some questions to me on what pieces would need to go to council, what is it, the whole program. So there's a lot of discussion that needs to take place, as well as I just stated, a public comment period. So no, there's no at this point environmental board formal process. Of course, if we are going to have a public comment period or of any sort, environmental board can always weigh in, or individuals from the environmental board can always weigh in on that particular process. So then the other thing, and I'll try to make this really quick and not belabor this, because of course it's been reported in the paper and things, is that the parking garage, as you may have all heard, a contentious issue, is there's been a lot of discussion on whether we need to rehab the parking garage or whether we need to start over with a new parking garage. And I'm sorry, because I was running late, I don't have my notes in front of me here or my computer on to be able to look at it. But we had some estimates early on that seemed doable in terms of affordable city. And then as we got some engineers in taking a look at the structure, begin to realize that what we thought would be kind of a low budget fix to be able to get 25 or 30 years out of the parking garage, or whatever we can get out of the parking garage, was completely inaccurate. It kind of equated to the fact is like your old car has gotten you to 250,000 miles and you can get it back on the road, but it's going to cost you an exorbitant amount of money to get it back on the road. So the group that we're working with, or that we've contracted, looked at alternatives being a new parking garage. And the conclusion was that we can build a new parking garage for approximately $10 million less than rehabbing the existing one. In the interim period, the ramp to the third floor was deemed unsafe. There were some structural integrity problems there. It was closed. Last Tuesday, the council voted to put money into fixing that, although the plan would be at this particular time that sometime early next year or spring of next year, we would be tearing down that garage because it really is in bad shape. That was unfortunately proved to be very much the point in the case when, as I understand it, one of our city employees was there later on in the week, I think it was Friday morning, and found some other issues that were undetected, or maybe even just began to become more obvious. So at this point, you're probably aware that the parking garage has been closed. So that's, I mean, I think there's environmental impacts, but, you know, looking at the age and the quality of this and the condition of the parking garage, it seems really clear that we are, if we're putting any money into this existing garage, we're going to be putting money into something that keeps on kind of rusting away and deteriorating further, and perhaps becoming a very big safety issue. You know, the plan is moving forward towards a parking garage on that particular space that would incorporate a transit hub, and also would be using DRI money. So if you can remember back when we that was all the rage. This is part of one of the projects we put forward, and this was a big reason why we got the DRI. So we're hoping we're not hoping, we'll be using DRI money for that. So that's something out there, I think, as well. Any questions about that one?
The cost and the percentage of DRI commitment to cover that cost?
Yeah, again, this is my apologies, I don't have it in front of me. I mean, there's The cost is, boy, I'm gonna now start pulling numbers from the top of my head, which is dangerous. I believe it's 17 million for the whole, and certainly Carrie, if I'm off on anything, jump in. $17 million for the whole project as opposed to 26 million for a rehab
Yeah.
project. Of that 17 million, I forget how much, I wanna say 8 is DRI, again, 8 to 9, right, DRI. But not only looking at rehabbing the garage, it would also be the whole Water Street area there and Market Street, so
And
there's
the
several
transit
different.
hub.
And the transit hub itself, right, so there's several different pieces in this, it's not just a new garage, it's the whole kind of area around there building up, as well as the transit hub. It will allow us to move the buses off of Main Street, so if you've ever gone down Main Street and you pass by, you never know what stores actually exist behind that row of buses. We'll now be able to discover what's been long sitting there waiting for us to frequent them, because those will now be down on Market Street, and a lot more kind of neater, kind of put in there in a really kind of a very organized fashion. And I think it's looking at the building plan, it looks pretty good. It is available online if you'd like to look at the plan and all the numbers. I'm very confident are online as well, so rather than me reciting from my head and making a mess of them, you can certainly look at what those numbers are and how much it is going towards it. Yes, we will need to be bonding some of the parking garage. But again, that dollar amount is certainly a lot less than what we've been quoted, that we'd have to rehab it at the $26 million mark.
And
One, oh, go ahead.
bonding, but also there would be ongoing revenue from paid parking to help support.
Paid parking that's not been a decision that's been made. There is a parking task force that is examining that right now. That is certainly, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or an entire task force to recognize that paid parking generates revenue. What that parking task force recommends is yet to be seen. They're doing a pretty in-depth analysis of that. But yes, that would be the idea. The other piece in terms of revenue generation for the city is that part of the attractiveness of building a brand new structure, this structure would be 2 stories high and would allow for construction of stories on top of it, meaning that we could lease or even sell the kind of air rights above it. So we'll build the structure in such a way that a developer could come in and build on top of it and build market rate housing over top of it. So there's some attractiveness there, is rather than, there's nothing we can't add any more weight to the 3rd floor. In fact, when it snows, we have to ask cars not to park there because it's really in tough condition. When we build this new one, it will allow us to be able to go higher with market rate housing or something like that a developer would want to put in. So there's an increased revenue source for the city there.
Is there some alternative parking that's gonna be available while it's closed?
Well, that's the challenge, right, is that we were not anticipating this closure right now, and so I know that the mayor and our city administrator are looking at right now, trying to come up with some solutions. One of those solutions that we have in mind, at least not in the short term because it's not available, but in the long term, is that the old Ford building in Market Street at some point will be coming down, and we can utilize that. I mean, it's gonna come down, if we don't take it down, it's gonna come down its own shortly. But we'll be able to utilize that particular area as parking, and then there's some, investigating use of Demaski Field parking, and everything else. So there's definitely a lot of thinking about how we accommodate, recognize that we generate as a city a lot of revenue, and our businesses downtown benefit from having a lot of visitors, and the parking garage certainly incentivizes people to park close-ish and walk to those businesses. We're going to try to figure out how to be able to allow for folks to be able to access Main Street, as well as folks that are not able to access Main Street and need to use, kind of wheelchairs or different, have mobility issues and need to be able to park in a place that has wider spaces. So the 3rd floor of the parking garage right now handles bigger vehicles that have lifts. And so we're trying to work on developing a plan that would allow some of those vehicles to park in other places in Main Street so they can still access Main Street. So, yep, trying to come up with some plans there. Again, this is all, I think the timeline has been accelerated in which we're trying to get these plans in place, because clearly with the issues with the parking garage as they are, we recognize that we don't have time. It's not a luxury we have right now because it's really in bad shape. It doesn't, I'm not a structural engineer, but I can walk around down there and see a lot of rust, a lot of metal where it shouldn't be. So that's certainly what we're trying to do, is to figure out how we can, allow people to park and still have access to Main Street, support our Main Street businesses.
From an environmental standpoint, it's a good time to encourage people to walk.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for those who live in the Center City area and who are able to, over the next year, whatever time it's gonna take for us to build this new structure, I think we help the problem, if you will, by walking, right? So if we are driving our 2 blocks to Main Street to hang out at Latte and, walk up and down, do a little shopping, that might be somebody from out of town that is driven in and wants to shop and gets frustrated when they, because of course you'll park in Walmart 3 miles away from the store, but nobody wants to walk in Main Street. Sorry, it should be statement of the day. But I think we can do better by being, if we leave our cars at home and let people that are driving out of town park there.
Along those lines, it'd be good for us to think about things we can do, or we can push the city to do to promote walking and biking, more bike parking on Main Street is one.
Well, to remind this board, and I think that Jean was the only person who was here at the particular time, but this board several years ago pushed out a complete street policy, a recommendation to the city to adopt a complete street policy, which the city did. And so that's certainly part of all the thinking is complete streets, meaning that it's not just a matter of thinking about cars that drive down roads and the miles per hour that we're concerned about them, which we are, but it's also thinking about how everyone uses those roads: walkers, cyclists, skateboarders, people in wheelchairs, the whole works. So I agree with you. I think it's an important message to get out. I think the more that we can all walk and ride, the better it is for many different reasons. Sorry that was so long.
Oh, it's not. Thank you. On to the committee reports now. I don't have too much to say for urban forestry, other than every one of our elm trees has burst out in leaves. So that is good. They all survived the winter, and none of them were chewed on by deer.
Yeah.
That's a victory. Last week there was an Arbor Day event at Riverside that also coincided with the planting of the 25 apple trees at the Swart Wilcox house to restore the historical orchard there. And the arborist Fred Hathaway ran a program with the elementary kids. And sounds like it was a successful event. I think Caitlin, you stuff. Great. And that's all I have for urban forest at this point. So on to community engagement.
We've been posting.
You've been posting
Yeah.
crazy. I just posted about the apple planting event, 'cause I thought it was good content,
Yeah.
but I was concerned that maybe I scooped the city, and I didn't mean to, but I was just really excited to share.
And people are following us, so that also helps sort of network.
Yeah.
OCCA.
So thank you for all of your posting, Gina. And Michael, I invited you the other month. I don't know if you
Yes.
accepted the invitation.
I accept the invitation, but that's all I've done. I haven't actually posted anything.
Right. I've been posting, but Gina's been
But
posting.
I was being glad to see how much Gina's been posting.
Yeah, it's been good.
Well, I wouldn't say it's that much compared to, but for our generation, it's a lot.
Well, I
Couple
haven't
times a
seen
week,
any
you know.
TikToks from you yet.
That's how I
I don't doubt it.
And then if my Oneonta 2030 report falls into this category, I'm not sure, is that old business or is that community engagement?
I mean, where would you like to talk about it?
I'm just excited to share that I had a wonderful 3-hour meeting with Judy and Greg and Stephen and Morgan, and I spoke with Mark at length, and I gathered a lot of information. I wrote a 25-page paper that left out a bunch of stuff because I didn't have time to write it up, so now I want to put in the rest of the stuff and have at least Judy look at it to make sure it's factually correct before presented to everybody else, but I don't know what format that wants to be, if you want the full paper, if it wants to be, my thinking is it's more of so it's a report out on the progress since 2013 when the Oneonta 2030 report was published, but it's meant to be a guide for updating that plan and maybe moving some of the climate smart community stuff. So I'm happy to share just the raw project that I created for my class, but I feel like maybe it wants to be some other format. I'm not sure what. So after you all look at it and choose whether or not to look at it, maybe you can offer me feedback. So I'll send you that before the next meeting. But it was great fun, and so much has been accomplished. We can celebrate. I think there's a lot to learn from. So I'm sure we're gonna be good.
That is wonderful.
I don't know how others feel. I would request that, I think it'd be great if you give us a report, but then also give us a presentation, like overview of it in our meeting.
Sure. Is there like a multimedia component here? Is this the thing?
You can use the screens, yeah.
Okay. Sure. I'll present something next month.
Okay.
Would you be willing for us to promote that and we might get a little audience? Or a few folks that might be interested?
I'm happy to share with Member the ideas that it was a deliverable for this commission, and then for the city council and for staff. And the staff seems to think that maybe more of an abridged version might be more appropriate for the public, some sort of like more simplistic spreadsheet or something. So I'm happy to share everything that I have and then get feedback on what that wants to look like. Because yes, the inquiring minds want to know and we want to feed them. So I don't want to overwhelm folks with information. I can talk outside of the simple. So.
Is this something you'd be interested in discussing or kind of presenting to Common Council, some of?
I would like the final, whatever it is, to go to the Common Council, absolutely.
Okay.
So if there's a preferred format for that, I don't know. I figure once I incorporate the stuff that I left out to meet my deadline, and then have at least Judy vet it for accuracy and probably yourself as well, to make sure I'm not misrepresenting anything, then I would like to call it done and share it with whomever, and then use it to build our next steps.
Sounds good. Thank you.
No, thank you. It was, a lot of fun, a lot of information. I learned so much.
Commissioner Keel?
So, the only thing I have on energy, and I'm trying to find out the final resolution, municipalities were very upset with the governor and the governor's budget that might be infringing on home rule by forcing development of energy projects. And so that would affect upstate if we are producing energy to be transported downstate and municipalities lose some of the control over, and it gets technical in terms of finance, municipal finance. So I don't understand all of that, but there's been quite a kerfuffle, and there was some compromise version, but it is in the budget, and there is this concern about, a long-term concern about, to meet these goals, clean energy development, will we, our localities, be able to have a say on the size and appropriateness and this, those sorts of things. So something for all of us to maybe keep an eye out in the news as it develops, but we've had some of these fights in the past. I remember the NYRE and some others. So again, this kind of idea that the attack on home rule, which is a provision of the New York State Constitution, is one of the concerns. And several big projects have gone on, not in our county, but around, and again, community's not particularly pleased with whose interest is being served. Even as we might all support the big goal, when it gets to local, it's not just NIMBY, but it's also, do we have a say?
Was part of that the problem of the green energy developments getting non-for-profit, like no property taxes?
Yeah, so that's part of the deal, that was the compromise, so that there would still be, in lieu of taxes, it's called pilot or something. Yeah, so that is part of this concern, yes.
A lot of non-taxed property already.
Some of it, the university property. Yeah. So I don't have expertise in this, but that's part of the bigger energy concern that we would have some interest in.
And I know talking to people on the Schoharie County Board, a lot of them said, Otsego County will be next, they were predicting, and based on development patterns. So,
depends if it's wind or solar. I think that, that's part of it too. So Schoharis got more flat land, big
Right.
flat land, so they're it.
One of the angles is making the IDA aware of like what the different options are for that sort of development, because if a developer comes in or a property owner says, I wanna make money on my land with a green energy project, et cetera, if they decide to do something large scale and try to pipe it down to the city, then that's one thing. If they do something that's more like a community shared or owned
Right.
situation where
Microgrids.
like a microgrid or some arrangement where people can buy into it, and then the locals are actually profiting off of any excess energy. Like, there's so many different models, so I think it would behoove us or someone to educate potential developers and people who interface with those developers to make sure that people know what all those choices are, so that when it does happen, it can maybe benefit people here more and avoid some of the kerfuffle.
But the IDA is notoriously non-transparent, and there has been some push for more transparency for IDAs out of the controller's office and others. So, I'm not sure that they want to work with what are the other plans, sort of like we want to build it for our purposes, not community purposes, some of that. State goals driving this is more important than, so, yeah, it's a huge area. And will we be at the table or on the menu?
Are there allies in this that have, a closer shot at being at that table, like Mohawk Valley style, or like who are the players?
Well, OCCA they've got a whole planning staff, so they have the expertise, so they have been a player, and other region, so this is an issue that's lots of complaints about home rule from different parts of the state. But I haven't had time to even dig farther in that, but it's, it's a real concern. But I would say, we're also got a lot more political organization power and the ability to push back than the East Coast.
Well, Schoharie County also has a more conservative
Yeah.
base that's less interested in green energy and perhaps more interested in local control.
Hmm.
Onward.
Yeah, no, well, of course, there's the nuclear news, but I don't foresee us getting a small nuke plant anytime soon, but some people say that. And a friend of ours, has a history on this board too, thinks that's the answer coming.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Geothermal loop, I don't know, we're still looping,
No, we're
Yeah.
actually investigating, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's good.
You're actually what?
We have a study to do a geothermal study on a geothermal loop.
Right,
Geothermal
but did you
study.
say you're investigating it or
No,
investing in
We
it?
have a group that is looking into the feasibility of a geothermal loop downtown. The challenge has been is we're not getting as quick a response from some of the business owners, or not business owners, but the building owners. But yeah, it's being looked at, and then there will be a second wave of geothermal grants, and because we've just done this planning grant, if we find that there's some good value in doing it, we would be first in line to be able to apply for this grant to actually do it rather than just study it. So
And the geothermal fed building on campus will be up and running August 1st. And that will then maybe be a flagship that other people might say, hey, this is actually warm and cool.
Right.
And controlled.
That's Alumni Hall.
yeah.
And I will be having an office in there, so I'm hoping it works out real well. Compared to our other buildings sometimes.
Yeah, I never got to see what they did in terms of the
Oh, the big drilling,
we
yeah.
haven't seen that.
Well, Scott would probably do a little show and tell for us if they're interested.
That'd be good. Yeah, so this is more of a loop rather than a kind of an isolated system, but it would run from Fox Hospital. I mean, theoretically, there's a lot that needs to be done. Looked into this down Main Street. And then, buildings could tap into this the way that we have as, gas or whatever it might be.
And it would significantly cut their costs.
Yeah.
So there's this, why wouldn't the building owners want it? Yeah. because they don't understand it. I think that's why.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Very good. Anything specific for transportation?
Yeah, I got something.
Okay.
More complaining.
On
Or
transportation.
informing. So, the policy on the SUNY campus changed, and I'm trying to investigate why we got more cars, especially around the campus, pushing into our neighborhoods, and more parking. And the campus changed its policy that said students can bring cars. We used to restrict freshmen and that sort of thing. So it's pushing cars down and affecting the quality of life in several neighborhoods, including ours. And also, the city is a little bit culpable for eliminating gutters, the curbs. So now the sidewalk is flush with the street and people park half on the sidewalk. So those are, on the upside, there is some talk of, between the campus and the city about the buses and OPT and trying to encourage students to use them more, so I need to find out more about that initiative I just heard about. But it seems like in other ways the campus is going the wrong direction and using parking access availability as a way to attract students. Yeah, which saddens me.
Bring your car to campus and
Yep.
come home
Yep.
as a freshman?
Yep. And leave it parked and, party and speed and, it affects, so it is affecting the city.
So they're providing freshman parking slots, parking spaces on campus somewhere? About the tennis courts or whatever?
And down by Bugby, those used to be just empty, and so now they're full, and the overflows into the city,
Bring your car to campus.
and there's the facilities plan, so again, think about putting that as a full road, but the city would have to cooperate with that, so.
I was unaware about that.
Yeah, so the pro-car policies, increasing individual transit solutions and emissions is really the wrong direction. So maybe it's temporary, maybe we can have a conversation with the campuses. So, how about free beer instead of free parking? I don't know.
How much of a problem is it in the neighborhoods near, I don't see it in my neighborhood. But
So it's kind of on anybody on the periphery of the campus is going to see some of this.
My street is just clogged.
Is it?
Yeah. That whole-
Newly clogged or?
No, it's just
always
because
clogged?
the house right across
Rentals,
from me
we have student rentals,
has,
yeah.
11 cars.
Yeah, so you can have 4 students with 11 cars somehow, too. That just
Yeah.
makes no sense.
And you may not see it on your block, but further down on our block toward
Yeah.
Clinton, there's been more cars
Cars
than
still
those
here.
students.
Yeah,
And they've been sitting there idling for 45 minutes at a time.
Well, that's the other thing, the idling. No.
At 6:30 in the morning, we couldn't figure it out.
Wonder if there, and if anything could be done with like parking permits, residents automatically get a free permit, but everybody else has to pay? I don't know.
Well, we also have no overnight parking, but it can't be enforced. We don't have the resources, the police don't want to enforce it, and so students learn they can just park there anyway, overnight, even if it's for days and days. It's just
Until Tuesday.
yeah. Or until someone comes.
And even that, because one year we had students living on the corner of Spruce and Center, sign clearly in front about parking on alternate days. Every week they got a ticket, and they couldn't understand why.
Well, some of them are well off enough that it's just the cost of doing business for them. They don't, it doesn't matter, that ticket. So, but the bigger problem is how do we change the culture? How do we get people to walk and not walk? That's a big one, you know.
It is, it
I
is.
walked up the hill to work today. It's brutal.
Yeah.
So many flowers to look at, so
Yeah.
many deer to
I'm trying to
admire.
find a reason I could walk because it's tough to go up to the campus.
It's a little steep in some parts.
It is, but it's doable.
Well, micromobility.
Right, if they can't do it.
You're already up on
All
the
right.
Already up halfway.
It's not that far from your house. Okay, we need to
Thank
get
you.
serious
So-
and finish here.
Sorry,
All right,
oblique.
public spaces.
I don't know, Mike, if we're ever gonna get a creek named. I think we might never get a creek named.
Did you see the thing in the paper about the trout releasing thing that somebody did in the high school where they raised, I think the Dave Brandt thing, they raised trout and everything. So clearly they're doing, some people are interested in doing some of that outdoors.
Occasional communications with Janice, LaRue,
Mm-hmm.
but
And,
not much.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'll get renamed.
Well, I mean, the other option is to give up on the schools and make it a sort of community public thing, but basically nominate a name for your local creek. And
Even though the first one,
But, I mean, I don't care how many nominations come in, as long as it's not a popular vote, as long as it's suggestions, which then could be considered by this committee or council.
what about the summer programs that kids go to? I don't know if there's, the Y does a summer program, right?
What park programs, is that running this summer? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, they look for projects that,
and maybe Mike and I can regroup, but this, I think maybe Mike is correct in that the only way to get it done would be to like, make it sort of publicly, more widely known that there's some creeks in town that need a name. And, you know, and some, it wouldn't have to be school groups, it might be a Boy Scout group, it might be a Girl Scout group, I'm not sure how it would go, but, in terms of my efforts to reach out to teachers have been pretty good and completely respect for the hard work that all teachers are doing. It's a point where I kind of need to just hang back if they want to come to me. Anyway, I have zero correspondence to report on this. Made lots of, yeah, appropriate if it's appropriate. So, we just need a new approach. So,
What about a college student?
college students would do it. I mean, I get the college students in my classes to do it. I run all the science education programs.
Yeah.
So that isn't
Like
the
a-
goal, I don't think. I think we want local kids who live here
Yeah.
to, get a sense of stewardship for the community,
Mhm.
live here forever, and say, hey, you know, when I was a kid, I named that creek. It's just, it gives them a sense of, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Ownership, connection.
So, we don't know, this has been like 2 years ago, when it was kind of Mike's idea, but we don't want to lose track of the, naming the creek is nice, it's fine, but there was an educational component here that was more important. So, Mike and I haven't met, worked on this.
No, I got a job in Cortland and gave it, passed it off to Paul, who has been diligent about communicating with the teachers, but
Yeah, no, nothing shaken.
one small suggestion.
Sure.
I just facilitated a Hartford Algal Blooms Summit in Cooperstown with all the water players and conservation folks. And so OCCA has many programs
OCC.
that connect kids and
Mhm.
water, and they have staff, some of our former students.
Mhm.
So this is something they might be
Yeah.
willing to partner with and maybe even help
Maybe
with
not.
their current, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they do the Earth Day thing in Milford every year. And so they've kind of got, we could build it into their existing contributor or participants.
OCCA.
Yeah, OCCA. That would be my.
Yeah.
And Amy Wyatt has more energy than a nuclear reactor, so she might be able to get it done too. That was just one thought. I mean, they're so impressive in what they do. It's just one thought. There are watershed coordinating committees. There are like serious people that work in water in the region, and
Dave and I are very much aware of the harmful algal bloom.
So, yeah.
Yeah, Seagull Lake last summer.
Yeah.
Kind of a disaster.
we're trying to get ahead of it. Yes.
So, I don't know if we want to take any action at this point, but I think that's a good recommendation, and Paul, you know, should look into that. We've focused specifically on Oleana, but there definitely are county resources.
Yeah, some other approaches to get the word out there that your idea of just just sort of making the opportunity available and let people come up with their own proposals, their own way to do it, from almost any group. You know, like here's these creeks that are unnamed, I don't have to, but somehow come up with a, you know, an educational plan. But this is kind of what we've been doing. I can reach out to the person at OCCA and show them better ideas. Without losing track of the original goal, which was really, you know, a bunch of fourth graders doing this. So, Janice DeBrew, I think she's a pretty good egg, and she actually might surprise us and come back, and I've said this before, but I think if we just got one of them named and it got some notoriety, it got people learn that they did it. Once you do one, it might get bold.
I thought you actually had traction with Greater Plains teachers, but did that not?
Yeah, not much back and forth now.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not easy.
So, moving on, a couple
Yes.
quick things. Things are happening on New Island, pleased to report. Number one, as part of this SUNY Into the Streets Volunteer Day, had about 30 student volunteers come and rebuild a section of trail by the dam that washed out last summer. So there's a new, how long is it? Quarter-mile trail section, maybe? On New Island. Second, the Susquehanna Greenway Committee got funding from the county to put in some signage and park benches on New Island. And third, the city staff have been working on another trail section by the rail yard, that's going to the state to get wetland this month they're getting wetland delineation done so that a trail can move forward there. I feel like there's one other thing related.
Would that be a accessible trail? Are they doing any that are wheelchair accessible?
No,
Not the rail yards?
the rail yard, that section of trail won't be, it'll be
Rough.
it's like a 2/10 of a mile trail on a 5-acre city parcel at the corner of Fonda Avenue and, what's the other street? Roundhouse Road. But the idea, working with the county IDA, is eventually to continue that trail through the IDA property, so sort of circling the wetlands there. So, I mean, my vision is that someday there'd be a trail that would basically go from downtown all the way out to, like Separately, basically, through that wetlands, or around that wetlands. But we just have to do piece by piece. So the first piece is working with the city on the 5-acre lot that the city owns, because we can have more direct control over that. And the last thing was the river, I always get the name wrong, Riverfront Revitalization Grant.
Riverfront
Uh,
revitalization, yeah.
Is moving forward. The consultants that the city and town contracted with have been sort of reviewing possibilities, and I think it'll, this summer, maybe go to a public comment process, basically to look for ways to improve access to the Susquehanna River in both the city and the town, from Silas Lane all the way out to Fort Park, including and on the south side, like some pedestrian access to go from like Lowe's area, Southside Drive, up to the river as well.
And also up along Indiana Creek all the way up.
Oh,
to-
yeah, right. And Otego Creek, yeah. So there's a lot of possibility there, and I'm excited to see what ideas the consultants come up with, and then hopefully see that get some traction.
Might have opportunity for trail naming.
There you can, yeah. You can't name a creek after yourself, but you can certainly name a trail after yourself if you give the city $10,000 or whatever.
Not me.
We have a parking garage built.
Maybe you can name parking spaces.
Oh, there we go.
Ooh, I want to name a parking space on the 3rd floor. Wait, it's only 2 stories higher.
It's yours.
All right, anyway, that's my report.
All right, thank you.
Great.
Old business, I think I'll leave committee restructuring once again off until some time in the infinite future.
Can we maybe add though the 2030? I mean, with,
Yeah, I think, what I would imagine is we, over the next month perhaps, just decide what we're already doing and how that lines up with the existing committees, what needs to be renamed, does anything need to be added, do things need to be combined, just bring your ideas for the next meeting, we'll do it. I think,
That would go really well following your presentation.
well, there we go. And you were working with Steve yearly, you said, right? You met with him and Greg, right?
I've met with them,
Okay.
and I asserted my interest in helping with climate smart communities,
Sure.
emphasizing that it does not have to be me, that
Right.
liaises, but then they were thinking that maybe this committee might just become that committee, or this commission
Well,
might just be that
Stephen
committee,
sent me an email, I think it was Thursday of last week, and based on his analysis of the language of the, I forget what the right word is, so I'm not gonna try. His interpretation was that it was in better alignment if he just takes point on it. A city, an employed city official who will provide the continuity and the muscle memory to keep this thing moving from year to year, because he was worried about turnover on the board, and and I certainly, I replied to him and said we would, we're still very happy to help, the enthusiasm is here, let us know what we can do to help, to liaison with you, to, support the endeavor, and I left it at that. I haven't heard yet back from him again, but I'm sure we will. Tree ordinance, real quick, we chatted last month about it, and we seem to have Stephen Yearly's buy-in on it, so my thinking is the next step will be to send it to, not engineering anymore, what are we, Public Works, because so much of the language involves them as being the ones really in charge of the work and the interventions, just to cross-reference the language of the draft with them and to get their feedback on it. Seems like the next step to me. So I can send that along to them.
any other stakeholders?
At this point, I don't know. I think we're just, unless there's some input from the board here, I would think not yet, but.
The only other who cares about trees with NYSEG.
Yes, and they have, I've talked to John Williams about that. He went to a meeting with them last year and had more than enough information from them about what they like to see and what really upsets them.
Yeah.
So that's certainly going to be part of the conversation. But yeah. So, 29 Greenway, I guess is covered.
Yep.
Okay. And just real quick, Kathy, you attended and spoke for the Keep Mohawk Valley Beautiful event last month. Went well?
It went well. It was very brief, which was good. Just to kind of backtrack to one of the things we talked about before, what I realized when they really presented what they do, there's a lot more to their program than just picking up litter.
Sure.
But they also really emphasize that is a big environmental concern, that the litter does do damage to the environment, and getting people to be aware of not littering is a good thing.
Speaking of this, has anyone gone to the transfer station lately?
I've heard that.
It is quite a sprawl of plastic, and if it can blow in the wind, it's kind of all over the berm and headed
That's
towards
somewhere.
Susquehanna. All the sorts of places we
Why is that?
don't want it to be.
It's not under control?
Not so much, no. I
Is
think
it
once
only
the
fenced?
snow melted, it was all suddenly there. So I don't know if, from time to time we hear students looking for projects for cleaning up the area. I think that could be on our radar. It's a mess, and that's just, yeah, they have fences around, but
But I think no lids on some of the things, is that what it
I'm not
is? And-
convinced
yeah.
it's gonna hold it at bay.
Mm.
But, thank you.
I am afraid I remembered one other thing that was meant to include in my report, which is that there was some concern, the Susquehanna Agreement Committee heard about city maintenance along the mill race in Nemo Park, the newly paved trail there, which was forested, and the city park staff, or I'm not sure who actually did the actual work, but did a lot of clearing of underbrush to open that area up, so it feels much more park-like. Which, so it kind of fits more with the rest of Nemo Park, but it's no longer a forested section. But the problem now is that there is a lot of Japanese knotweed growing through there, which is an intractable problem, and I don't really know. I have no idea what can be done about that.
It was brought up last month, and I believe there were some regulations involved with the berm being clear of vegetation
Right,
for, the flooding, or the levee of the
Right.
berm. So I
right,
think
but the
that,
question is,
but now what, right?
now there's Japanese knotweed growing, and so it won't be clear for very long.
So there was also a concern about with no vegetation there, is erosion going to be a problem?
Mhm.
So that was part of it, but yeah, the knotweed it's hard to stay on top of that. There's a lot of garlic mustard there too.
It's
Mm.
everywhere.
Less than there was this morning, but.
Very good, not very good.
So I just wanted to
Yeah.
raise that to attention, and I don't know if this body has any idea what can be done about it, but
Goats eat
goats, okay, goats. I'll bring my goats.
it. For when we're not mowing our lawn
Do
anymore.
goats eat it?
Goats are wonderful, but I can't do knotweed.
Oh, I thought they would.
You gotta get it
They do
all out,
kudzu.
you gotta burn, it's like scorched earth to get it really gone.
New York started, they tested a program and they apparently released it in 6 areas of beetle larva that eats knotweed. But I haven't been able to find any recent information on it. I think this was 6 years ago that they started this in 6 areas of the state, but obviously it's not working.
Any new business?